Hi, my name is Hayden Padgett. I'm a Petroleum Engineering Junior from Wichita, Kansas. And this semester, I've had the pleasure to be the team lead in the Technology Commercialization Team. This semester's TechCom team is working with Oklo, a Silicon Valley startup that is developing small modular nuclear reactors to generate electricity in remote areas of the world. The technology itself is really fascinating, but I'll leave it up to the team to tell you a little bit more about it. I'd like to take this time to thank some of the important people that have had a strong impact on the project this semester. First, a big thank you to our mentors, Nicole Baird and Bruce Stover. Your expertise in your fields, as well as your overall guidance on the project, have been so helpful in guiding our research and the deliverables we're presenting here tonight. As well as a big thank you to our two incredible inventors, Caroline Cochran and Jacob DeWitt. You have both been so incredibly enjoyable to work with this semester and so helpful along the way. And the technology that you're creating over there at Oklo is really incredible, and it's been so fun developing an implementation strategy for it this semester. I'd also like to thank my 4 incredible interns. They have exceeded every expectation I've had this semester, as well as brought about some things that I didn't quite expect. I didn't expect to have a team full of early birds. They truly loved waking up super early on Monday mornings to get to our 7 a.m. meetings every single week. I say that a bit jokingly because I know we all dreaded those meetings a little bit, but I'm so proud of all the work that they put in day and day out and all they've accomplished this semester. I'd like to welcome up to the stage Team Oklo, Grace, Connor, Juliana, and Alec.
Electricity is one of the most important necessities of modern life. However, there are many places in the world that still rely on inefficient and dirty forms of expensive energy, such as diesel generators. Oklo is a company that's hoping to change these things by creating a nuclear reactor that's small, safe, reliable, and produces electricity with 0 emissions. They're hoping to enter first markets in rural Alaska and Canada that can supply energy to communities that are dependent on diesel generators. And they've tasked us this semester with researching 2 potential secondary markets, which include oil and gas production sites, as well as African communities that could use grid stabilizing electricity. We've conducted interviews with over 20 professionals in the oil and gas industry, energy law and finance, as well as engineers in African utility companies, regulators with the NRC, and nuclear experts. After our research, we've discovered that there's a $22 billion, $33 billion potential market in Africa, as well as a $2 billion potential market in oil and gas. Hi, I'm Grace Poseidon, an electrical engineering junior from Alva, Oklahoma.
My name is Alec Armour, and I'm an entrepreneurship and marketing junior from Kansas City, Kansas.
My name is Gianna France. I'm an electrical engineering junior from Manzini, Swaziland.
And my name is Connor Moore, a physics, mathematics, and economics junior from Goodyear, Arizona. And together with our inventors Caroline Cochran and Jacob DeWitt, our mentors Nicole Baird and Bruce Stover, our team leader Hayden Padgett, and our fellow Cassandra Wrigley, we are Team Oklo.
Oklo is an extremely advanced nuclear reactor design on a scale unlike anything else currently in development. It can provide 2 megawatts of electricity, which is the equivalent of around 2,000 American homes. Its small modular size means that multiple reactors can be sited wherever they're needed to provide electricity in increments of 2 megawatts. It weighs around 35 tons per unit, and they can be shipped in a shipping container. Oklo is also incredibly green technology. It can reuse waste through a process of refreshing the current waste that exists from large-scale nuclear reactors that are already operating in the United States. It also produces 0 emissions through this reaction process. Oklo is also incredibly efficient. At 40% more efficient than all the competitors on the market, it can operate at maximum capacity 98% of the time. And it also has an extremely passively safe design, meaning that if there were ever to be any overheating in the core, natural processes would cause the reactor to cool off without the need for human intervention. Additionally, all of the nuclear material will be buried under the ground, leaving the power converting unit and the radiator sitting above ground. Now that I've told you a bit about the technology, I'm going to pass it to Alec to describe what problems Oklo can fix in these markets.
Thank you so much, Grace. So, as Grace showed, this is a new and emerging technology that can be a benefit to lots of different markets. However, specifically, we were tasked with looking at 2 secondary markets for Oklo, which are oil and gas exploration and production, and then agricultural utilities. So first with oil and gas, there are two primary problems that exist. First off, the energy sources they are using produce a lot of emissions. In Canada's oil sands alone, they produce 70 megatons a year. And this has significant negative environmental impact, and also there are many regulations concerning these emissions. Secondly, the current generators that they're using require maintenance every 40 to 45 days, which can be very costly for the remote areas that we are looking into. Oklo solves both these issues, first, by providing a source of energy that has no emissions and therefore in its lifetime effectively removes 1 million tons of CO2 from the air, and then also by only requiring maintenance every 3 to 4 years because its core has no active moving parts. So while the problems exist in oil and gas because of their current energy sources, in Africa we see problems with the infrastructure and with overall electrification. Annually, $142 million is lost in energy simply due to transmission losses. This means that from the current energy sources, energy cannot travel all the way along transmission lines to get to the end user. This is a huge problem in Africa, and also this leads to a number of blackouts. From a survey we conducted, we found that pretty much everyone in Africa experiences at least 3 hours of blackouts per month. So this is something affecting everyone simply due to the low electrification of the region. Oklo solves these problems by first being able to provide power closer to the end user by connecting to substations that are close to the consumer, and then also by supplementing current electricity on the grid. So now that I've talked about what Oklo can solve in these markets we're looking at, I'm going to look at implementation into oil and gas. As Grace mentioned, we have found a $2 billion market in onshore oil and gas production for Oklo to enter. We are looking here at 4 different countries, that is Canada, Mexico, Colombia, and Argentina, and these have been targeted because they have high growth in their exploration and production, high onshore production as opposed to offshore, and then also because lots of their sources that they are used are off-grid, meaning that they do not rely on main power sources, so they have to provide their own power. Additionally, the companies operating in these areas are often big oil companies, and according to our mentor, Nicole Baird, she has informed us that many oil companies are looking towards an energy transition, so they will be requiring to provide renewable energy by the years 2030, 2040, and the transition to this can already be seen in a $1 billion pledge recently made by the top 10 oil and gas companies internationally. So where specifically do we see this entrance? First off, we see a primary pain with where diesel energy is being used to power production sites. There are 3 sources of energy currently being used, which is grid energy, which we don't see entering initially because it is something that is very reliable for the consumer. On-site natural gas, which because natural gas is a natural byproduct of production, oftentimes people in the industry see this as a free resource. But with diesel, we see that there is an entry point of $85 million because they are spending a lot of money to ship gas, sometimes even, or to ship diesel, sometimes even 35 miles off of any roadway. So with this, if we can sell energy at 22 cents per kilowatt hour, we would be able to save oil and gas companies $565,000 annually per site, and also 20 Oklos would be able to sustain the energy needed for this specific market. So now that I've told you about oil and gas specifically, I'm going to pass it up to Juliana to talk about implementation in Africa as well as competitors.
Thank you, Alec. Moving on from oil and gas as one of our secondary markets, I'm going to be talking more on our second secondary market, which is the African continent. Sub-Saharan Africa has experienced a rapid growth in the middle class. In addition to this, there has been an investment, foreign direct investment of over $18 million. This has put pressure on the Sub-Saharan African governments to provide both sufficient and reliable electricity. We have identified an initial potential market of $33 billion. This is a measure of annual electricity purchases by 5 key countries in the region. This being South Africa, Namibia, Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria. We narrowed down the market from 29 potential countries to these 5 countries primarily because they've already established nuclear electricity boards. The establishment of these boards within these countries shows a clear commitment by the government to incorporate nuclear energy into their energy mix in order to sustain both social and economic development. These countries are also members of the International Atomic Energy Agency. This international body, which promotes the peaceful use of electricity, helps countries to be able to receive nuclear materials from the United States. Governments within these countries have also liberalized the power generation segment. This has allowed independent power producers, which are private companies, to generate and supply the government-owned utilities with electricity. You may notice that all these countries are from different places within the African continent. Yes, there are cultural differences that Oklo will have to take into consideration as we negotiate with the individual countries, but all of them have got a characterized heavy reliance on large power plants. These are mainly thermal and hydropower stations. In an interview conducted with the Chief Distribution Officer of Kenya Power, she indicated to us that during peak hours, the amount of electricity supplied by the substations is insufficient to meet the present demand. This is actually worse off in areas that are located far away from the central power stations, which are more often than not located in densely populated capital areas or capital cities. It is for this reason that we recommend that Oklo works with grid-connected communities which are far away from the main power generation segment or source. This will ensure that Oklo can come into these areas and supply the substations with much-needed electricity. This will help stabilize the grid, give them the needed electricity that they have demanded, as well as cut down on government expenditure on transmission lines. Building on the relationships and interviews with Kenya Power representatives, we're able to identify such an area within Kenya. We have identified the Western region as a more ideal place for Oklo. The Western region has 9 counties, which have a population of approximately 100,000 people that can be served by an Oklo. 44 Oklos will be able to sustain the whole region, whilst, for example, Homo Bay, one of the counties, 2,000 households can be sustained by one Oklo. So now that you have seen how versatile Oklo is both within the oil and gas industry as well as in sub-Saharan African markets, we'll now look at what are the energy technologies that Oklo will have to compete with. Within oil and gas, this will mainly be natural gas and diesel generators. Oklo stands out as being an emission-free energy generating source, which is something that it shares with renewables. Oklo is also portable, meaning that it can be placed in any district or locality that is suffering from power outages. It is also reliable, which is something that renewables cannot stand on since they are reliant on the weather conditions that surround that area. When it comes to price, Oklo stands as a price competitive source within the diesel generating segment since it will be coming in at 12 cents per kilowatt hour. If it enters the sub-Saharan African market at 12 cents per kilowatt hour, it will still be as competitive. Now that you've had a better understanding of the viability and implementation of Oklo in the 2 secondary markets, I'll pass it on to Connor, who will speak more on the business analysis as well as our financial model.
Thank you, Juliana. So, after talking with multiple oil and gas companies such as Exxon, Mobil, and Shell, and African utilities such as Ghana Electric and Kenya Power, we've determined that the best way for an independent power producer to enter these markets is through the use of power purchase agreements. A power purchase agreement is a long-term contract where an energy producer agrees to sell electricity at a set price for a set period of time to a consumer. Oklo is going to use the Oklo reactor to produce 2 to 3 megawatts of electricity. This electricity will then be used to replace diesel generators in oil production sites as a centralized power source for these sites. In Africa, the Oklo generator will act as a supplement to struggling grids in communities far away from centralized power sources in the country. In return, Oklo can expect a 12 cent per kilowatt hour market price in Africa and a 22 cent per kilowatt hour market price in oil and gas industries. Once Oklo has entered the African market, it can expect an initial income per year of $600,000. The Oklo reactor is actually expected to be $25 million per reactor. However, as more reactors are produced, this price is expected to go down. Despite this, Oklo is going to use debt financing in order to cover these immense capital costs. After talking with Mariana Barrientos Ocio, an energy finance advisor at Citibank, and multiple Bank of America representatives, we've determined that Oklo can expect an interest rate from anywhere from 7% to 13%. For the purposes of this model, we've used the conservative estimate of 13%. Combined with a 12-cent kilowatt-hour market price, which translates to $2 million per year in income, we've determined that Oklo will need to reduce the reactor price down to $10 million per reactor in order to enter the African market. In other words, Oklo will have to produce and sell 6 reactors and then enter the African market on its 7th. Oklo, going forward, Oklo can expect, as it produces more reactors and captures more of the market, once it has captured 33% of the market we've identified, it can be earning a little over $18 million per year in net profit. Going forward, Oklo should begin immediately to connect with these oil and gas companies and African utilities that we've contacted. Our research has shown that long-term relationships and familiarity are very important for these companies when choosing partners to work with. As they enter their primary markets, another important part of these relationships is collecting data from their primary use cases. Especially important are efficiency, electricity production, and safety. With this data in hand, it will be very helpful to help these entities overcome their reservations about working with a nuclear reactor. Once this is done, Oklo can begin to start negotiations with oil and gas companies and African utilities to negotiate PPAs. An important part of these negotiations for African utilities is going to be in the plan and implementation for the Oklo. African utilities require that independent power producers such as Oklo have a plan for how their power source is going to work in current infrastructure. So these negotiations, it will be very important for Oklo to understand African infrastructure and how the Oklo will fit inside of that. And for any country, oil and gas or Africa, Oklo will have to work with local governments in order to license the Oklo reactor so that way they can use this nuclear device on ground. This semester, we've worked to identify a $33 billion market in Africa and a $2 billion market in oil and gas industries. This reduces to a 12-cent per kilowatt-hour African market price and a 22-cent per kilowatt-hour oil and gas price. We've also created a network of contacts Oklo can use to establish itself in these markets, from engineers and economists in Africa to oil and gas executives and energy managers in oil and gas industries. It has been very exciting to work with Oklo this semester. Seeing the impact that Oklo will have going forward is very exciting as they produce this advanced technology. Oklo is guaranteeing that we will have a greener and literally brighter future. And I'm excited to say that this summer, 2 of us will be going on as interns to work as engineers and consultants at Oklo in Silicon Valley. Now I would like to open the floor to questions.
Negatively on the environment? And the answer is there's very little nuclear material in the reactors to begin with because they only produce 2 megawatts each. Additionally, they're encased in extremely strong protective, containing material. They'll be buried in concrete and rebar. And the passive safety system that was designed by Oklo means that in any event of overheating, the reaction will stop automatically without the need for human intervention. So the likelihood of any ground contamination is next to 0.
Full-size nuclear plants have a multi-decade decommissioning phase. How do you guys decommission?
So your question is about the decommissioning of the Oklo. The Oklo lifespan is expected to be about 12 years. At the end of that 12-year lifespan, because of the use of power purchase agreements, Oklo will actually still own the reactor. And so at the end of that 12-year span, they will actually collect the reactor and take it back to their manufacturing site, where they will decommission the reactor and refurbish it and refuel it for use. Yes?
It sounds great like the idea of doing a smaller thing, but what's the counter argument that why would you not look at a big nuclear power plant? Is that more cost effective than having like 20 of these that so many $1 million of profits compared to the pros and cons?
So the question is about why we're not looking at doing large-scale nuclear, correct? So the reason for this is that Oklo as a company, upon its inception, is looking at targeting just these smaller markets. So there are a lot of competitors in this large-scale nuclear. So the reason Oklo's specific value proposition is the fact that they are able to provide this cheap, clean energy for communities that don't have reliable sources of power, such as their primary market in Alaska. They're spending tons of money on this extremely environmentally destructive energy. So specifically offering this small 2 megawatt size, that's a size that they've tested with their primary market, is something that they're looking at.
Yes?
When you look at the markets and you check if these Oklo access to the grid, once it produces a lot of areas in Western Africa, there's a grid again.
So the question is, have we looked into whether Oklo will be able to be integrated into the grid? And the answer is yes. We had a conversation with a representative from Gridco, which is the main distribution company in Ghana, and they have what is called embedded generation. So you have smaller power plants like micro hydro that are already connected to the grids. In our recommendation, we spoke to one of the professors, utility professor here at OU, Professor Paul Moses, and he said that an Oklo can be connected to one of the substations or a node within the distribution network, and this will be able to supply the electricity to a community or district or county.
We have time for one more question. Yes?
So we were just a little bit confused about who exactly is going to be purchasing the Oklo. Is it going to be the gas companies, communities, separated from the actual capital, who's exactly buying and implementing the Oklo themselves?
So for the oil and gas market, it will be the oil and gas companies themselves. So it won't be, although we had target countries, it's really up to the company themselves where they see it fitting. As for the African market, it is the utility providers such as Kenya Power